Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to the Committee on Economic and Community Development work session. In attendance, we have representatives from, we'll start with the committee members, and I am Vice President Councilwoman Sharon Green Middleton of the 6th District and Chair of this committee. We have Robert Stokes, member of the committee and representative of the 12th District.
Chair.
We also have John Bullock, member of the committee and representative of the 9th District.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So have Ryan Dorsey, member of the committee and representative of the 3rd District.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We also have Mark Conway, member of the committee, representative of the 4th District.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And we also have Antonio Glover, representative of the 13th District and member of the committee. And we also have Odette Ramos, member of the committee and representative of the 14th District.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And I think that covers everyone. And just checking to see if we have any additional council members present, which we do not. And we have members of the Office of the President. We have Nikki Thompson, Director of Legislative Affairs.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I also see Max Stegman from the President's Office.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And I also see, I think that covers it for the Office of the President. Representing the Mayor's Office, at this particular moment, they haven't joined in yet, so we'll still move on. So this afternoon, the committee will review we have 2 bills that we are reviewing. The first one is Bill number 21-0021, late fees for past due rent. And before I read that and move forward, I just want to let everyone know that this is a work session for the committee. We, at the last hearing that was held on February 9th, 2021 for this bill, we had a long, extensive hearing, had lots of testimony. We're only going to get public testimony if a person from the committee has a question for someone that that's available to answer a particular question. But this session is clearly for a work session for the committee. And again, this first bill is late fees for past due rent for the purpose of requiring a lease to have a provision regarding a 10-day grace period, requiring a lease to have provisions regarding the amount of money landlords may charge for late fees when landlords may charge tenants receiving public assistance for late fees as a condition precedent to the tenant's right to redeem and the types of fees landlords may recover, and prohibiting this section from altering other remedies available to a landlord. And again, this bill was introduced on January 11th, 2021. The hearing was held on February 9th, 2021, and the bill was sponsored by Councilmember Stokes. And we're going to move on. We have, first I want to thank, there was a number of people that worked through this whole 2.5, going on 3 months, on both of these bills. And the President's office particularly really did a lot of research. We had individual meetings with different entities, just coming up with trying to really get both of these bills moving, because with COVID going on, there is just a number of things happening that I think that both of these bills will just help people along the way with their housing needs. And the key is, this is the first time that we, as at this particular council, are really working on something really strong and intense that can help our constituency in Baltimore City. And I'm just going to go ahead and start with, I don't know if Councilmember Stokes has something else to add, but I'd like to go ahead and get right into the committee work.
I'd like to say something, but you done read everything I was gonna say anyway. But I wanted to say, once this bill is enacted in 30 days, this only apply to those persons who are renewing their lease. It doesn't go into effect if somebody's already have a lease. So it's only gonna apply to people who are renewing their lease. That's when it affects. Also, I want to thank Nikki from Thompson, from President Mosby, his office, for their hard work and really bringing amendments and help putting this together. Y'all did a yeoman's job, so I'm not going to talk forever. And
So thank you. So on that note, we'll have Nikki Thompson on this particular bill. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And not to belabor the point, but I also want to express my thanks to everyone who has been a part of this process. We are facing historical challenges, but it's an opportunity to do some great policy to serve our residents. And so I appreciate everyone for their input and for allowing us the opportunity to really do a deliberative process, which is what the city residents deserve. And also this legislation, both of them, we know, as we've seen in other jurisdictions, can really help people get over the hurdles of late fees and security deposits. And I even personally have reaped the benefit of both of these pieces of legislation, even in my own, personal journey. So I have even used a surety bond for myself, even in my own personal life and in my own transition from a domestic violence, actually. So that's hard to share, but that echoes a lot of the testimony that the residents shared with us at the hearing. And so, I stand with them, and we want to make sure that we're doing right by them and really taking the time to get this right. So I appreciate everyone for your thanks, but this bill and this legislation, both to you, Chair Middleton and Councilmember Stokes, it holds a special place in my heart because I know what it can do for our residents, especially Black women. So let's get into the amendments. So the first set of amendments were actually introduced shortly prior to the hearing. There were some technical amendments from the Council President's office. We worked with the law department and also some of our advocacy partners to make sure that we were aligned with state code, and also didn't want to prevent folks from being able to decipher between rental insurance, which is an entirely different process, and security deposit insurance, which is a language way of describing the surety bond, which is more of a industry term. So
one second, Councilman Stokes, could you mute yourself? We're hearing fumbling.
Madam Chair, aren't we on 2021? I'm at 2102. I'm at 21. Sorry, I got the numbers all mixed up. On Councilman Stokes' bill.
Yes, we are.
I put up 22 by mistake.
It was a mistake. It was put up on the screen by mistake, but we're on 2021. Thank you. Thank you.
Additionally, we wanted to make sure that we were including the right type of government benefits. Our previous draft really didn't get to the crux of the folks we were trying to help who receive a housing benefit. And so we had done some redefining to make sure that we're including as many people as possible in the section that is basically allowing for folks who are receiving a government subsidy or benefit to align their due date with when they receive their benefits, so that they are not receiving late fees. And finally, we just added a section which was an additional protection for renters, and it adds that in addition, a residential lease that includes a provision permitting a landlord to apply a penalty for the late payment or rent must include a provision that prohibits a landlord from applying a penalty or late payment of rent until the tenant has received their benefit or it is more than 10 days late, which is the other part of this bill that allows for a 10-day grace period for late fees. So those are the amendments for 21.
And Nikki, those amendments were included in the bill already, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. We originally introduced them before the first hearing, and so this version has been sent around a couple times. Yes, ma'am.
Right. And I just also want to recognize Nina Thimulus is here to represent the mayor's office.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, raise your hand if you have we'll use the raise hand function so we can kind of keep order, and we'll start with Odette. You're on mute.
I don't have my hand up. I think the councilman does. I just wanted to say I think these are the right amendments on this. Thanks.
Okay. Councilman Dorsey.
I do not have these amendments.
Those amendments were sent to everyone together
6 weeks ago? I don't have them.
Oh, those amendments were sent together. I don't have the dates offhand, but they were all sent to the committee. So
I have received no communications from any proponent of this bill since the bill was heard, whatever it was, however many weeks ago. I have received no amendments until yesterday when I personally sought them out. I heard no proactive communication about either of the two bills that are being discussed today.
okay, all I can say is that they were sent and your name was on the list. So if you,
I understand that, but I don't have them.
okay, so
Anybody send them to me?
Council.
Send them again. I can send them.
Jennifer is going to send them again, but she did send them. So I don't, maybe you need to get someone from IT to check, but they were sent to everyone. And as far as I know, everyone has them. So we're going to move on. She's going to try to send them again.
Right now.
In fact, she's sending them right now as I'm speaking. And by now you should have received them. So evidently there's some kind of technical problem. She has just received them. Huh?
Did he just get them?
Have you gotten them yet?
I have not received them.
Okay, so there's definitely.
Just now.
I just got them.
Okay, he's got them. All right, thank you. Any questions on this particular bill? Do I have a motion to move this bill as amended?
So moved.
Motion to move.
So moved by Stokes, and do I have a second?
Second by Glover.
Second by Glover.
So,
Are we voting on the amendments?
Chair, we're voting, the amendment was already, if I'm not mistaken, the amendment has already been included in the bill. So,
But we didn't vote on it at the last meeting.
okay, let's see who's on here. Elena, do we have to vote?
You vote on the packet of Nikki's amendments.
Hello.
Madam
Hi,
Chair.
Victor.
from the city law department.
Should we vote on the amendments, the package, the amendments for this particular bill that Nikki just spoke on?
The bill, the amendments that you're talking about are the ones that were just received by Brian Dorsey, and those are dated March 16th. That is yesterday.
You're voting.
I'm voting on, I'm proposing the vote on the amendment that Nikki just spoke of that was included in the packet. Do we have to vote on that separately?
Yes, you need to vote on that separately. And let me add that the law department had an amendment to this bill as well.
We're not on that part right now. I want to do piece by piece, if that's okay.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. So we're talking about the amendment that was already proposed in the bill. Let's go ahead and move and take a vote on that. And I think I heard Councilman Stokes, you moved that amendment?
Yes.
And did I hear a second from Glover? Councilman Glover?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Chair Middleton is a yes. Councilman Stokes
Yes.
is a yes. Councilman Bullock
Yes.
is a yes. Councilman Dorsey?
Madam Chair, I just received this amendment 1 minute ago. I'm still reading it.
Okay. So you're not voting. So I'll skip over Councilman Conway
Yes.
is a yes. Councilman Glover
Yes.
is a yes. Councilwoman Ramos?
Yes, on the amendments, yes.
Thank you. Hold on, please.
The law department amendments were included. If you want Victor to explain.
Okay.
And Nikki to explain.
So Victor and Nikki, I know Victor, now you were mentioning some law department amendments that should have been included. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I sent them just after Jennifer sent the amendments this morning. The amendment you just voted on takes care of my problem, so the law department can stand aside.
That's what I thought. I just didn't want people to have any more confusion.
Sure.
Does the committee at this point have any questions, or can we go ahead and move this bill as amended? Is there a motion to move the bill as amended?
So moved by Councilman Stokes.
So moved by Councilman Stokes. Do I have a second?
Second, Councilman Glover.
Is that Councilman Glover? Second, and we want to move it, we're moving this bill favorable with the amendment, and Chair Middleton is a yes. Councilman Stokes
Yes.
is a yes. Councilman Bullock?
Yes.
Thank you, is a yes. Councilman Dorsey
Yes.
is a yes. Councilman Conway
Yes.
is a yes. Councilman Glover? Councilman Glover, I know he's been having some off and on.
Yes, it's going in and out, so yes.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Ramos?
Yes.
Okay, this bill will be moved to second reader. And right now, I would just want to have maybe a 5-minute recess. So Councilman Dorsey, because of the issue that he transpired out of his control and our control, I just want to give him like 5 minutes to go over the amendments. Councilman Dorsey, is that sufficient for you?
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yes.
Okay, so we got just a little 5-minute recess before we begin again. Okay, it's 2:28 and ready to reconvene for the next bill, which is bill number 21-0022, the security deposit alternatives for the purpose of requiring certain lease provisions to create alternatives besides the traditional security deposit for residential leases under certain circumstances, defining certain terms and prohibiting this subsection from limiting a landlord's ability to require certain qualifications on a residential tenant's application for a new residential lease. This bill was introduced on January 11th as well, 2021, and also heard by the committee on February 9th, 2021. I was the sponsor of the bill, and I just want to say again, I want to thank the president's office for, really doing the research and working hard to get this bill together and out there to the public. As I said before, both of these bills came at a very opportune time as the problems really came to light in our city as continue to go through COVID. And, I have been getting calls and problems from just renters experiencing things that they have never experienced before. Families people losing their jobs and just trying to figure out how to make ends meet. I have particularly African-American females that are raising their children alone and don't have a job, and they're renting an apartment, and they're just going through so many circumstances that they need help with. I have an instance where a senior has been in a rental facility for over 30 years and during COVID, got a notice that she had to get out in 30 days because new management a number of things are done disrespectfully, and a lot of this takes communication and taking time to go over things. And quite frankly, this bill has been worked on since January 11th, and we can't keep picking with this thing has to start. There has to be options, and we have like two options available. The one option basically where a tenant can pay security deposit versus the selecting 3 installment payments. And then we have another option where the tenant can obtain a rental security deposit insurance. There has been data and research and checking around the state where this has started and there has been no problems at all. And my goal is to get help out there. The beauty of putting in an ordinance is that the council can, if there's something that needs to really have some serious tweaks, we come back and put it in again and correct that tweak. My goal is to get this moving as quickly as possible because our residents need these options. They need their money to help ends meet and to help things going. So committee, I want you to consider this. Timing is, we needed that time to look through things. Of course, nothing is completely perfect until we try and see that's what we've been doing. That's what we continue to do. So on that note, again, I'll turn it over to Nikki, there's been, we still have, communication from several organizations, that are for the bill. We have things in our file of people that basically are opposed. But I really need you to take your time and think and see what has been brought before us. And again, my goal is to try to get this moving. These things that are, all of this is helping. My goal is to help the renter as much as possible. We have been a city that has been noted nationally for, having certain problems, but we got to start it, and that's how we learn and see the kinks. And I understand some of the things that have come to light at the last minute, and that's what I'm trying to avoid. We can't get things at the last minute. We need our things ahead of time, and we need to keep it going this way. And I'm not talking about this bill, I'm talking about with bills thus far. We need to have an organized manner to keep things moving. I want to start with Nikki Thompson. Basically, we have a number of bills, a number of amendments that the president's office has worked hard on and did their research. And so I want Nikki to go ahead and go over all of the amendments to help this bill that their office has definitely been a strong partner with.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this first round of amendments, number one, were to provide clarity. There were some provisions in the first draft that did not align with state law. And so we wanted to first do some aligning there, specifically in the definition of security deposit, et cetera, because we had some additional provisions about exclusions, what a security deposit means. And so we've striked the definition that was created for security deposit, and the First Amendment is aligning with State Real Property Article Section 8203A3.
Raise your hand if the committee
There's
has
a little bit more. Questions? Go ahead. No, you're fine.
I was kind of going to do one piece at a time. Maybe is that okay with you?
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine.
Does anybody have any questions on this particular amendment that Nikki has set forth from the committee?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes, Councilman Dorsey.
I actually have that as but a small piece of a much larger amendment. I do not have an amendment that only does what Nikki just described.
Well,
The amendment that she sent me yesterday amends what she just described, as well as quite a bit more than that.
Well, right now, I want Nikki to go over her amendments. I don't want any confusion here. So she has an amendment number one, and we're going to move on. If you don't have a question about this, you want to submit something else, I don't want that to happen at this time.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that she only described a very small part of amendment number one.
I had yet to finish, Mr. Councilmember, so I'm happy to finish.
Go ahead, Nikki. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Returning to the amendment. The next portion narrows the scope. So the subsection will only apply to landlords who own or control 10 or more rental units in the city. And we also aligned some of this previous language to match more with what our neighboring municipalities are doing. So while the concept of offering this to renters is new, the fact that this process exists is not new. And so some of our partner municipalities are doing it, and we wanted to make sure implementation was consistent. So I'll read it aloud. In general, if a landlord assesses a security deposit of more than 60% of the monthly rent charged for a unit, the landlord shall include in the lease the offer to purchase rental security deposit insurance or pay the security deposit over a series of no less than 3 equal monthly installment payments. So that's really getting to the crux of what we're trying to do, which is ensure that folks are offered both of these two options to make a decision of what is most beneficial to them. Next part of the same amendment is a rental security deposit insurance. If the tenant elects to purchase rental security deposit insurance described in the above paragraph of this subsection, the insurance provider must be an approved carrier licensed by and in good standing with the Maryland Insurance Administration, which is the existing regulatory agency. B, the insurance provider policy and coverage amount must be submitted to and approved by the landlord as an acceptable option in lieu of the required security deposit. C, the insurance provider must obtain from the tenant a signed acknowledgement on a separate sheet of paper with the following disclosure. This is really trying to get to some of the concerns that have been raised, and we do recognize and share that while this concept exists, this may be the first time that a renter may be encountering this process. So we wanted to make sure that disclosures are provided so that the tenant understands that the periodic fee due under this contract is not a security deposit in itself and will not be refunded under any circumstances to the tenant at any time. The purpose of how this works is a security deposit may be $1,200. You get the security deposit insurance in an amount of a fee that is significantly less than $1,200. In some instances, from what the data has shown us, $60 is the fee that is paid. It is a one-time fee, but you do not get it back because it is not working similar to, I think, the general concepts of insurance that most of us think of, which is why we made sure to make that designation between renter's insurance that you're paying monthly on consistently, and this, which is a one-time fee. But this is a very complicated section. It's definitely been tossed around a lot. So I follow the chair's previous point, which is that she did want to allow time for questions as we went through the different pieces. So Chair, if you want me to stop at this point to allow for that, I'm more than happy to.
I'd
keep going.
I'd like you to go ahead and go through all the amendments.
Okay, no problem. So further, D, the landlord may not require the tenant to provide additional security or insurance coverage per claim in an amount greater than the amount required for security deposits, and any rental security deposit insurance offered shall meet the following criteria. Number one, the coverage is effective upon the payment of the first premium and remains effective for the entire term lease. We wanted to make sure that tenants were covered consistently. The insurance must permit the payment of premiums on a monthly basis unless the tenant selects or agrees to a different payment schedule. The coverage provided per claim is no less than the amount the landlord requires for security deposits. And if the tenant elects to pay the security deposit through rental security deposit insurance and fails to purchase the rental security deposit insurance on or before the date of the lease agreement, the tenant must pay the security deposit the landlord originally assessed. And if a tenant elects to pay the security deposit through rental security deposit insurance and fails to pay the premiums of the insurance, the tenant must pay the unpaid premiums to the landlord. Moving to installment payments. If a tenant elects to pay the security deposit installments as previously described, it shall be due on the same day as the monthly rent payment. The installment may be paid together with the monthly rent payment in a single transaction, absent a separate agreement by the landlord and the tenant. In the event the tenant fails to pay the monthly security deposit installment, the landlord may collect the deposit as additional rent under the lease. And then we move into some definitions. So renter's insurance, we defined it. It means that it's insurance covered covers a tenant's personal property located within the premises of the tenant rents. This is not what we're discussing in renter security deposit insurance. So we've included this definition to bifurcate the two to allow for there to be clarity on which is being provided, because these are not the same at all. And in general, nothing in this subsection may limit the landlord's ability to require standard credit, income, or other qualifications upon application from a new rental agreement, or preclude a landlord from requiring that a tenant have renter's insurance in addition to rental security deposit insurance, because since they are not the same, we want to make sure that renters know that renter's insurance is not comparable to this, and we don't want renters to think that they have one thing and then not be covered on the back end for whatever claims they may need through renter's insurance. So that is this first set of amendments that is all within one amendment. They are pretty substantial.
Thank you, Nikki. So that was everything about the president's amendments, correct? Okay, staying on task. Does I see Councilman Dorsey's hand up?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you explain the difference between insurance and surety bonds, and talk about why one term would be used rather than the other and what the intention is here?
Yes, so the concept of insurance that we're all really familiar with, and the specific concept of renter's insurance, is I am paying into an insurance pool to be able to cover claims that may come up due to damage or whatever else may be covered under the insurance policy. So that is a monthly policy that you are paying into, and you're updating as you move from place to place. And at the back end, if there is a claim that is made for you personally for damage, you're able to make a claim against that insurance to recoup for yourself personally. That's insurance and renter's insurance. This is a different setup and a different structure. So a surety bond is not when you receive a surety bond, the fee that is paid is a one-time fee. It is not a consistent monthly fee unless you decide as the tenant that you would like to break that fee out in installments over the course of the lease. And at the end of the lease, the entire fee should be paid. The instances that we've seen doesn't run longer than the lease. It can't run longer than the lease. And so once that fee is paid, it is paid. And whatever claims are made against the amount that you have of the entire bond, that is then no longer within the tenant. It's not for the tenant to make the claim. It's for the landlord to make the claim. So it's a very different concept. And while the terms sometimes can be intermixed, they're just not the same structure, not for the same purpose, and not even really offered at times by the same entities. But I also welcome, I know we have an actual surety bond provider on the call. So Chair Middleton, if you want to oblige for anyone else to speak or answer the council member's question, if my answer is not sufficient, happy to make that time as well.
I have a couple follow-up questions.
How many?
One or two, I guess.
Okay. And then you said you had someone on the line Nikki, that could explain that further?
Yes, I think Jordan Stein from Rhino is on the line if you wanted to walk through more of the process.
Can I ask a related question to the law department first, Madam Chair?
Yes, I just wanted to make a statement too, that I'm pretty sure that we have a lot of protection too with state laws that prevent certain fees. Is that correct, Nikki? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Ryan, you wanted to ask a question to the law department?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Elena, or Victor, or whoever's, I guess, speaking to this, is it,
Elena.
accept?
Yes, I'm speaking here.
Is it acceptable to use the term insurance in the law in lieu of surety bond? We
I
have
think if
surety
there is
bonds.
I think if it's a definition that makes it clear what exactly it is, then it's not objectionable.
I don't think that there's any definition in here, anything that clarifies that what we're actually talking about is surety bonds, though I have seen reference to them elsewhere in the code. I'm pretty sure that in Article 15 in the title code.
Well, sometimes things have an industry term of art that's used in the public. And I mean, when you go to purchase something like this, it's going to be described to you what.
But I mean,
we could provide an explanation, I guess, but that's not generally what you put in legislation.
a basic Google search for surety bonds versus insurance, pulls up a website that makes very, very clear distinction between the two as very, very different things.
I was
essentially in this kind of application, one essentially indemnifies the landlord and the other indemnifies the tenant. So that's two completely different outcomes. And I think I don't understand how we could legally accept the idea of referring to insurance which would indemnify a tenant, but which would complicate indemnification of a tenant versus.
Well, I think it's pretty. I think it's clear here that they have to be licensed. They're not giving them something they're not paying for. I don't think there's any chance of.
So, and also, not to interrupt, but Councilman, we're clearly talking about security deposits is what the bill is talking about. The security deposits and the definition of what a security deposit is. And that's what the focus is on, that I want to keep it on, security deposits.
Madam Chair, the bill is not about security deposit. It's about alternatives to security deposits. And
yes, I understand that.
And insurance and surety bonds are two different things, either of which could be an alternative to a security deposit. And I think that if you mean to make clear and transparent to anybody that there are two totally different things,
okay,
that should be spelled out quite plainly.
So I understand that, but security deposits are the main focus, and these other pieces they are related. So the focus to me is on the security deposit piece. These other two pieces are a related piece, but not the main piece. On that note, we had, I want you to hold your further questions, and I want to go to Odette has had her hand raised for a bit. Odette, you can ask your questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Ms. Thompson and the Council President's Office and everybody who's been working on this. I know it's a very important issue.
Okay, just one quick, somebody, Elaine, could you just mute yourself, I guess, for now? Thank you. Go ahead, Councilwoman.
One of my questions was related to the councilman's in terms of the definition of security deposit insurance. I actually thought that we were talking about like car insurance, where where we pay into a premium, we pay a premium, we pay into it, and if there's a claim, like let's say I crashed into somebody, that money doesn't come out of my pocket. It comes from the premiums that I paid plus a pool. And this isn't a pooling, it is a surety bond. I just don't want to get people confused that they're actually thinking that they're going into a car insurance kind of relationship. And the fact that if there is a claim, then the company actually goes back after the tenant as opposed to paying it from another place. So I wonder if trying to use security deposit insurance as like a broad thing so that there could be multiple options for a tenant. It could be the actual insurance, like car insurance, but with, around rent or security deposits, and also surety bonds. Was that kind of the idea, was to try to be general? And if so, do we need to define it a little bit more in the legislation?
Nikki, you want to comment on that?
Sure. Yes, Councilmember, we definitely note that as an issue, since this is a process that exists and people have been engaging in, but it's very clear that there's a lot more public education that's needed. And so we definitely included the disclosure piece on a separate sheet because we want to make sure that residents who have been approved, because this is only offered to folks who have already been approved for the housing, and they're in the process of getting the security deposit. So we wanted to make sure that they were fully aware that this, despite, maybe the misnomer of the title, what this is and what they are likely getting themselves into if they choose this option. So how it's set up, who it's liable to, et cetera, because we definitely can understand that could be a point of confusion. No, there was never any intent to necessarily keep it general because our research has showed that this is the way, this is the process, this is how it's implemented. So we had not seen other folks that were providing the security deposit insurance in that manner of the pool, et cetera. So we never intended to keep it open for that type because we had not encountered that. So I've had conversations several times about maybe narrowing this term and welcomed the amendments to be put in. I just don't know if that actually happened prior to the time that was needed. And as the chairwoman already mentioned, we've definitely been working on this for a long time. So we note that concern and definitely tried to address it with the disclosure piece. We also wanted to keep ourselves in line with the language that's used in some of our partner jurisdictions because they are also implementing this particular practice. And so we are also just leaning on what we've seen in their jurisdictions as well. The issue hasn't come up. And so didn't want to fix something that wasn't necessarily broken. But if there was if you have any further data or if that amendment was offered, totally understand. I just think at this point, it had not been offered in time.
Yeah,
it had not been offered at all.
Yeah, I don't. Go ahead.
This is Elena. I was just going to comment that one thing that everybody has to keep in mind too, these aren't mandatory things. Actually state law says that you cannot require the landlord to accept a surety arrangement in lieu of a security deposit. So it's something that's subject to because the way this is drafted gives alternatives. It doesn't require it. It does not run afoul of state law, but it's not in no way mandatory or something that can be forced on the landlord and so as a result of that, not on the tenant either. So something to consider when you're thinking of the impact of this bill.
And that's an excellent point, Elena, that, as we got closer to getting to our work session, a number of things that have been submitted I felt have been kind of reactionary. We have to have a cutoff point so we can get things moving. And again, that's why we have ordinances, and that's why the council at any time can come back with another, after the bill has been in operation for a while, we come back and we help work out the tweaks. All of this, again, is basically for protection, and we have to see it and let it work in motion. There comes to a point where, and I see, with my longevity on the council, a number of things are important things become reactionary, but there has to be a timeline, a cutoff point? At this point, do I have a motion to approve the council president's amendments?
Madam Chair, I have another question.
Okay, Councilwoman, go ahead.
Thank you. On number 5, under the installment payments, it talks about in the event that the tenant fails to pay the monthly security deposit, the landlord may collect the deposit as additional rent. I'm a little concerned about this because, as you know, there's been a lot of discussion around what rent is, and as soon as the security deposit becomes rent, it also becomes evictable. And we don't want people to be evicted because they couldn't pay the one section of the security deposit. So I'm just, I had, submitted the suggestion that we strike that because we want to make sure that we're not putting people at risk by paying the security deposit in installments, and that we don't consider it rent, but that there's got to be some other way that, make sure that it is paid.
So particularly to that part, I definitely think I'm looking at 5, but I know that there's an additional section that says this cannot be collected as a fee. So it's actually being treated as a fee. And I'm quite sure state law does not allow for a fee to be a reason for eviction. However, I am not opposed to that amendment. And if it's already drafted and if the chair is amenable, but again, I want to be respectful of the rules and the chair.
So just so we don't have any confusion, so it sounds like you want that striked. And can it be just striked? I know Councilman Conway also had some questions on that. Councilman Conway, did you want to comment, make your comments?
And I also submitted a drafted amendment to that effect, so everybody has it.
Yep, that was sent to everyone right before the meeting. Thank you, Councilman Ramos. But I want to know if we can get some insight from the law department on particularly that issue. If we know that if that is left in, it becomes a case with which you can evict someone. I just want to confirm that.
I don't know the answer to that question because I have not researched that particular issue. I'm happy to look into it and get back to you as quickly as I can.
Okay.
I don't know what the timeline is for this, but if you let me know, I can try to conform my research to that.
Okay, thank you. And the other question, so I know there's been a lot of back and forth. I had a chance to talk with Nikki earlier about this, but with regards to who has the ability to determine whether or not a claim is paid out. And so in instance with the surety bond, effectively what happens is the landlord issues a claim. The surety bond agency would determine whether or not that claim is valid. If they determine it's valid, it's paid out to the landlord. And then the surety bond company would then go after the tenant for that fee up to, of course, the security deposit. Nikki, can you give a little insight? Because I reached out to DLR about this as well, but a little bit of insight on why it's not really necessary to have a third party to be a party in this.
Most definitely, and thank you for the question, Chair Conway. So particularly with this instance, a third-party process, appeals process is already in place by the state regulatory agency that already regulates these providers. And so they are a third party. They are an additional entity. I know that there was concerns around basically the final decision being with the surety bond provider. And I just wanted to clarify that existing state process is in place, and that is a separate entity that handles that appeals process.
So to be clear, if a tenant disagrees with the decision that the surety bond company comes up with, they can go to the state and appeal and have it looked at.
Yes, through and it's stated the regulatory entity in the bill is also stated in the bill.
So, thank you. So, I want to go back to the one piece in the president's packet for the committee. Should, I guess, should we take a vote to strike that one statement? Because again, I want to stay in order here. This is just, I guess we don't have to vote, but I'm just trying, I'm putting it out there. Do we want to strike, or discuss, we have a discussion about striking the, where the tenant pays to pay installments, that piece? Committee, the actual,
Chair, I have a.
the actual thing says, in the event the tenant fails to pay a monthly security deposit installment, the landlord may collect the deposit as additional rent under the lease. Let's have a discussion. Do we want to strike? Do we think we should just strike that piece?
I have a suggestion.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I think we could vote on amendment number 1 from the president's office because it simply does the conforming of the definition.
Councilman, I want to basically vote on all the amendments together, but I'm asking if we can vote on them together and strike this one piece.
I guess I just have a different suggestion that I would love to have the privilege of being able to voice.
If we're still on the president's packet.
Yeah, I'm
on the president's packet, and I just want to have a discussion to strike that piece. You're changing my question. I'm on that piece, and I want to know if the committee, let's have a discussion about striking that piece.
I would offer an alternative suggestion if I were given the privilege.
You can share your alternative. Or is it about that piece?
It's about the council president's package of amendments.
Go ahead.
Thank you. The council president has put forth 2 separate amendments. I would like to be able to vote on those 2 amendments separately. At least I'd like to move the first amendment because I think that there's no problem with the first amendment because all it does is...
The president has submitted this as a package, and it was given as a package. And that's what I propose, that we vote on the package. But I am suggesting, because the conversation was around the event of that piece about the tenant failing to pay the monthly security deposit, there seems to be, I'm feeling strong.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to finish what I was trying to say. I thought you had given me the floor to finish what I was saying.
You wanted to divide up the bills, and I'm on this one, and I want to vote on the total package.
Madam Chair, when we get to...
As they were presented.
Well, I would like to make a suggestion that when we get to voting for the package, that we remove number 5, Roman numeral 3, which is that statement about the rent. And so that when we're voting on the package, we're voting on everything but that. So
is there a motion to move the president's amendments without section 5, number 3? Can I have a motion? So moved by Councilwoman, one second here, get my paper. So moved by Councilwoman Ramos. Do I have a second? This is on removing that piece. Was that Councilman Glover?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, Councilman Glover. Chair Middleton, yes.
Madam Chair,
Excuse me, we're taking a vote.
point of order. Robert's Rules of Order allows the debate be open up after a motion has been made and properly seconded.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is my proposal that the President's amendment addresses too much in one amendment. That while it addresses in amendment number 2, both the idea, both matters related to payment of security deposits in installments, as well as matters related to the alternative of insurance or surety bonds, that we would be better served by considering them as separate considerations, just as we would be able to consider amendment number 1 separate from amendment number 2. I just really think that that while there's a lot of merit to the proposal to allow or require landlords to accept security deposit payments in installments, I have deep reservations about the use of insurance and surety bonds. And I would like to be able to consider language on the 2 as separate proposals.
Point well taken. There's a motion. We're in the middle of a motion.
Withdraw the motion so we can work through that.
Thank you. And we're going back to, we were in the middle of the motion. So Chair Middleton, yes. Council Member Stokes?
Glover, seconded.
Madam Chair, I thought I withdrew the motion so that we could try to work through with the council.
We were in the middle of the motion for that particular, to move the president's amendment without section 5. And you made the motion, Glover second.
Point of order. Councilwoman Ramos has withdrawn the motion.
Madam Chair, I thought that I'm sorry, excuse me, so let me just ask, my motion was to make sure that when we are considering the amendment, the package, that we remove that section about the rent. But if we are voting on the motion,
Councilwoman, yes. So let's start from the beginning. Okay. Is there a motion to move that amendment without that section 5, number 3? Can I have the difference? There's a little bit of a difference, because if we're moving, are we moving the motion, or we're just saying that we're removing the section 3 once we are able to move the package? I'm moving the package without that piece.
Got it.
So let's start over. Do I have a motion to move the president's amendments without that section? Can I have a motion to move, do I have a motion to move the president's amendments without that section that we discussed and had questions about? And it sounded to me like we wanted that removed. Do I have a motion for that?
We want it removed, and I'm hoping
that's what. So you're making the motion, and
I just want to make sure that we then go back to the whole package for discussion. Is that what we're going to do?
No.
We're moving the president's amendments without that section. Are you saying there's more dialogue you want to have about these other amendments?
That we didn't hear from others to see if they had other questions about the rest of the package. So that was my fault for jumping the gun.
There was no one else raising their hand. So I'm proposing to move this package without that section. Are you still making that motion? Or should I ask someone else to make the motion?
We'll go ahead and keep it and then hopefully go back to the discussion.
So you made the motion and there was a second by, I think, Glover, Councilman Glover, just for clarification, you second?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Chair Middleton, yes. And Stokes, Councilman Member Stokes. Councilmember Stokes, I saw you.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
I mean, I've been waving. I can see y'all. I don't know if I needed
We
a.
can't. I can't.
I missed it.
Do you vote on the?
I don't know. Let me finish because I got logged off. I don't know why. I could see y'all. Y'all could see me. You couldn't hear me. So what is the motion again?
We made a motion to move the president's amendments without section 5, number 3.
So we're voting on that, right?
Yes.
Okay, my vote is yes.
Thank you. Councilman Bullock.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilman Dorsey.
No.
Councilman Dorsey is a nay. Councilman Conway
Yes.
is a yes. Councilman Glover
Yes.
is a yes, and Councilwoman Ramos.
Yes.
So that section will be removed. Are there any, now at this point, are there any other amendments?
Madam Chair, I have another amendment that I proposed. And I just sent to everybody before then, so I'm sorry. And if you need more time, that's fine.
You go ahead. You have an opportunity to explain it.
So this amendment would be in the middle under the rental security insurance, and the intent is that the tenant and the landlord would do a walkthrough of the property and the unit prior to getting the insurance, so that, or the security bond, so that it's clear what the unit looks like prior to having to entering and living in the unit. Sort of like when we go rent a car and we see all the nooks and crannies and things like that, and then decide if make sure that when you return the car that it's, the rental company knows what's happening there. So it's just a way to make sure that it protects, I think, the tenant in this case, so that making sure that the landlord isn't saying that, the refrigerator was broken even when it was broken prior to the person coming in. So that there's documentation of how the unit looked like before.
So I guess I'd like, Elena, could you comment on this amendment?
I have not seen the amendment, so it's kind of difficult for me to figure out exactly what is being proposed here. If somebody would bother to send them to me.
Nikki, did you want to comment on Councilwoman Ramos's amendment?
My only thought is that I'm quite sure a walkthrough is part of existing procedure. And so I haven't seen this particular type of piece in any other existing places. It doesn't mean that it doesn't have a place and it couldn't be beneficial. I just, I haven't seen it. And so, not that I haven't seen this amendment, but I have not seen this type of amendment in other cities proposing this legislation or in our neighboring jurisdictions. And so, at this point, I don't necessarily know of what it adds.
May I answer? May I answer, Madam Chair?
Yes, I'm sorry.
What this basically does is just provides documentation. So you've got the photos and you've got documentation. And then if by chance a claim is made, you can utilize the documentation to see that, what was there was how the apartment looked before then, or the unit looked before then. And I know for a fact from talking with the industry that they don't do that kind of thing prior to getting the tenant to sign the contract.
So, Elena, so you said you need to look at the amendment to go through it. Is that correct?
Yes, I would like to see the wording of it before I say that I'm, on board with it.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm sending it to you. I'm sending it to you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
I think what we need to do now, again, as the law department is quickly reviewing this, I guess I'll give just 2 minutes for her to review it.
I have not received yet. Here we go. I got it.
Okay.
Give me a moment and I'll get right back to you.
Okay, so we're going to give the law department just maybe, like I said, 2 minutes for her to kind of look over it.
Chair, this is Nina with the Office of Government Relations. Can I please ask for the amendments to be sent to our office as well?
So that was Nina? I'm sorry.
Yes, I'll send them.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I'll send them. I had them properly prepared by DLR, so I'll send it right now.
So we're just giving a few minutes for them to review that, and I just want to say to the committees, see what we're going through is an example why it's good that we follow a process, that we need things ahead of time, but
Madam Chair, can I say a word, please?
Yes, Councilman.
So first, I just want to thank the committee for indulging me. I had to go on the phone for a minute. As you know, we're all dealing with the pandemic in different ways, and you saw my little boy, I had to pick him up from kindergarten. So again, we're all trying to make sure these meetings can happen and stay on schedule. I know this meeting has been an opportunity for us to kind of put forth some amendments, have some discussion. There was an amendment in the package that was sent out, more so for a point of discussion. So again, I know they're not offering it necessarily this time, but again, to your point about having things prepared in advance, but also talking about the alternatives and what they mean. So I want everybody just to be on the same page and have that kind of discussion as we're reviewing these amendments and trying to make sure we have a bill that's going to be good for renters and making sure that folks are going to be made whole in this process. So there's an opportunity to discuss it. I'm open for it, but again, I think the amendments that have been put forth thus far are very good, and so I'm very supportive of them.
Councilwoman Ramos, the housing department, HABC, I'm sorry, Bill Wells would also like a copy of your amendment.
He's there. I can make him.
Sure thing, no problem.
And we're gonna, Bill, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Thank you very much, Council Vice President Middleton. I didn't have a whole lot to say, just that we would need to review the proposed amendments also. There are requirements in HUD's lease and also in our procedures for public housing residents. We would want to make sure that any of the amendments are congruent with those. But also, as we've discovered through COVID, there are allowances and ways that HUD has allowed housing authorities to do inspections and walkthroughs and that sort of thing in terms of virtually, that I would like to make sure that an amendment wouldn't preclude. And then, we wouldn't have a problem with the local ordinance conflicting with our guidelines.
Thank you for your comments.
Madam Chair, this is Elena from the Law Department.
All right, Elena's back. Yes, Elena.
I would love to hear what Housing Authority had to say about this, but I just want to note that there is state law that talks about when the tenant receives a receipt for a security deposit, that receipt has to contain a notification that the tenant has a right to have the dwelling inspected by the landlord in the tenant's presence for the purpose of making a list of existing damages, and the right to be present when the landlord expects the premises at the end of the tenancy. So that is, I don't know, it's not the same, but it does speak to the idea of doing a walkthrough, which is certainly within the tenant's right under state law. So we would have to make sure that we weren't running afoul of anything in the state law that related to this type of activity of a walkthrough. So.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Elena and Bill. Good information. So, Odette, it sounds to me like you really need to talk to these two groups on your amendment. I think that now I'm putting a motion on the floor to move the bill as already favorable with the amendments that we have. And after you basically have dialogue with these two entities, that, you know, again, that can be put on the floor during our second reader. So I want to move forward with a motion to move the bill.
Chair, I just want to see if Bill got it and Stephanie from Housing got it so that they can take a look at it.
Councilwoman, I do have it. Thank you very much. And we'll review with Housing Operations and also our legal counsel.
Right. And I just was wondering, I guess there's no.
Thank you. So, Odette, I think there has to be further dialogue with these two entities. And I'm putting a motion on the floor for the committee to move the bill. Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
I would move another amendment.
So I have a motion on the floor. Is there a motion to move the bill as already amended? Or really a second?
Second by Councilman Stokes.
Okay, this bill will move favorable as amended.
Point of order.
Motion moved by Middleton, second by Stokes. Chair Middleton, yes.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Go ahead. You have your point of order.
Thank you. I wish to move an amendment before the bill, to propose an amendment before the bill is moved.
It was already a motion on the floor. I want to finish the motion.
So I'm not going to be allowed to propose an amendment as others were allowed to propose amendments?
Chair Middleton, yes. Councilman Stokes?
Yes.
Yes. Councilman Bullock?
We'll explain my vote. Again, I think there may be an opportunity to discuss further amendments like the ones from Councilwoman Ramos and possibly by Councilman Dorsey and possibly myself. But at this point, we'll vote yes.
Councilman Dorsey?
I'd like to explain my vote, Madam Chair. I am appalled at how transparently this bill is being rushed through this committee today without further discussion. I think that this bill warrants further discussion. I had questions that I wish to ask that were not given an opportunity, and I have a motion. I have an amendment that I'd like to propose that I've not been given an opportunity to propose, and I just think that it's blatantly transparent that this bill is being moved in spite of certain other concerns that I believe are due consideration, and for that matter, I very strongly vote no.
We had a great discussion.
Thank you. I think we've had a great discussion. If there's amendments that have been submitted late, and I'm getting feedback from agencies that they need to review, your amendments can be submitted to the full council on the floor at the next council meeting. So I'm moving
That
forward
said,
with
Madam Chair,
Councilman Conway. Councilman Conway?
the rules allow that I can move an amendment orally in the committee and cannot from the floor.
Councilman Conway, do I have a vote?
Yes, I'd like to explain my vote. You know, I think it is important that we hear folks out. You know, I do think this is a very important bill, and we definitely want to move it forward. But I do think we want to hear folks out to make sure that we do our due diligence, especially in the time that we have now in the committee. So I just want to put that out there.
And which, are you voting?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilman Glover?
Yes.
Councilmember Ramos?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I wish that we did have more time to really look at this again, because second reader is going to be hard to do on the floor, and there seems to be some more questions. I mean, I'm the last one voting, so I think it's important that we have enough time to do this. And so, respectfully, Madam Chair, respectfully, I think that we need to have more time. So I'm voting no.
So I just want to make this statement. I said, I constantly said this early on, that it's best if you don't do amendments at the last minute, because there definitely needs to be more time with discussion. And if you have something that comes up, these are reactionary things at the last minute, and they are important things. And I clearly felt, even from some of the agencies, and particularly from the law department, that when you submit things like this, they are looking at them at the last minute as well. And they clearly said they can't do so. I think that the things that you are submitting is something that can be discussed before we get to second reader at the council. And I don't think it's something that should have, held up the long work that we've had for close to 3 months. And I'll say that again, 2.5 to 3 months. There has been individual dialogue. There has been discussion with the advocates, but coming up at the last minute is not, you can't make decisions on those things. The decisions that are being made now are decisions that we have worked on, and we need to get this moving, and we know the process and how long the process takes. But this is something that I feel that is very important and needs to get in motion immediately. So with that in mind, I'm just making my last minute thoughts based on, comments that I'm feeling that you're saying they weren't there. There was opportune time for you to get your information. All of these things are coming up at last minute, that the sponsor of the bill and the president's office that has been working tirelessly on this bill, and to abruptly bring up last minute things is just not the way that we should be moving, not just with this bill, but with any other bill moving forward.
Will the chair be giving other people an opportunity to voice similar opinions?
You go ahead. You have had the floor several times, Councilman. I'm giving you the floor again.
I appreciate it. I'm a member of this committee, and I have the privilege of asking for the opportunity to speak, so thank you.
Of course.
I mean, because only because the chair has asserted so strongly that there has been such incredible outreach on this bill, am I forced to have to rebuff that? I mean, I received not a single phone call. I received not, if I may, Mr. Madam Chair.
Councilman, we're not discussing. You already clarified that you had technical problems.
I did not receive a single phone call about this bill.
This is a legislative process. Excuse me, Councilman. This is a legislative process, and we will remain professional. We will remain professional.
Madam Chair.
And at this point, I'd like to adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for attending the meeting.